Whenever I'm working with someone who is experiencing suicidal ideation, the greatest strength that I have is attuning to that person.
That's the most important thing, because right now they are experiencing isolation. They may be experiencing the feeling of being a burden to everyone around them.
Because I think a lot of times whenever a person attempts suicide, it can be really shocking to a community, to a family, and while sometimes it can feel really sudden, in most cases a lot of these thoughts have began and have been going on for months and even years.
Fresh out of grad school, I was working at a treatment center, and I had a session with a client who was experiencing the most SI I had ever been confronted with at the time. He was telling me, "Allie, I want to go jump off a balcony right now." I didn't know what to do, but I knew what worked for me and what regulated me was prayer. And so I sat in silence and I prayed in my head. And in that moment, I was able to regulate myself so that I was then able to then operate out of a place of calm and peace and know how to navigate the situation with him. In that moment of silence, he felt really loved and cared for because I didn't have all the words. I wasn't trying to fix his problems. I was just physically there with him. And for me, those things that I did or those interventions I tried worked for him because I knew him. I knew him deeply and he trusted me. And I think that's why the night ended up the way that it did, where he didn't have SI by the end of our session.
Knowing what that individual needs, whether it be very gentle, compassionate, loving care, or let's get angry, let's yell at it, let's externalize the suicidal ideation and talk about how much it sucks. But attunement is absolutely the key for me in helping someone through.
We had a client recently in our clinic who came in and was really struggling that day as far as thoughts of wanting to die, thoughts of wanting to go home and act. And so I went in and I said, "We don't need to talk. You don't need to look at me. We're just gonna sit here." We had gone through a safe place exercise the day before, and I walked her through her safe place that she had established and went through that grounding technique for probably a good 10 minutes. After about that 10 minutes, she looked at me and I said, "Does that feel better?" And she nodded. And I said, "Can you talk to us about what you're feeling now?" And she nodded. I think back on that day, and I just think what we did for her that day was show her when you're having those thoughts, you don't have to be alone with them, and it's okay to really speak up.
When you're feeling a crisis is coming on, what can you do when you need to get back to baseline? By implementing a safety plan, you decrease suicidal behavior by 45%. What to include on the safety plan is warning signs that a crisis may be developing, coping skills, and also important phone numbers to loved ones that can support you during this time, and professionals.
While it presents differently with different folks, I think it all comes down to recognizing that it's a symptom and not a directive, because like every feeling, that suicidal ideation, it will eventually pass. And it just really sucks being in it. Maybe later in life, if you experience it again, it might be, how am I doing with my self-love? Or do I have too much on my plate? Am I burnt out? Because later on, when we recognize that SI is a symptom, but not the root of everything that's happening. So really, it's figuring out how to move through it. Just survive until you can eventually thrive.
We did a lot of journaling, being able to figure out where do the negative thoughts lie, where did they come from, the content. And so journaling is a way to be able to observe these thoughts like a third party. After a few weeks, we can see the string that connects them all. And by addressing these, we can then rewrite them and begin to correct those thoughts and start moving forward.
I think community is the number one thing that's going to prevent somebody from taking action on their SI. And not just any community, a compassionate community.
Suicidal ideation is huge in the LGBTQ community. And so getting involved with that community and sharing these struggles with your fellow community members is really important.
And I think that that's a common thread among people who are feeling suicidal, is the feeling of not being worthy of anything.
I think it's really easy to listen to the suicidal ideation telling you, to stop, to end it all, that nothing's worth it, that you're not worth it.
And yet, you're none of those things.
You're not a burden to me. I want to listen to you. I am interested in what you're saying, in your suffering, and I want to be with you on this journey.
We can create a new narrative, and that it's possible to start right now.
You're worthy of the air you breathe. That's why you're here, is you're worthy of it.